You know what purpose is. Maybe you've known for a while, maybe just clicked recently, maybe it came in a quiet moment, in the middle of a walk, or at 3 in the morning, or in a conversation that suddenly went somewhere real. But you know, somewhere under that noise, the busyness, and the list of reasons why now isn't the right time. You know. And it scares you. Not a small, manageable kind of scared. The other kind. The kind where even thinking about it too directly makes something in your chest tighten. The kind that makes you tap away, check your phone, find something urgent to attend to. Anything to avoid sitting with the full weight of what you know you're supposed to be doing. And so you wait. You prepare a little more, you consume a little bit more content, you tell yourself you're not ready yet, you tell yourself the timing's off, you tell yourself you need one more thing, one more certification, one more saved dollar, one more sign from the universe that this is actually real and you're not just delusional. But here's what I want to offer you today. The thing needed someone to say to me when I was living in that exact place. The fear is not a warning. The fear is a confirmation. Welcome to Purpose Over Paycheck. I'm Coach Troy, Master Coach, Manifesting Mentor, and a person who stood at the edge of his own purpose more than once and felt every single thing we're going to talk about today. We're now several episodes deep into what has become one of the most important arcs of this show. This episode we talked about oh, I'm sorry. In a recent episode we talked about the moment success stopped being enough. In another, we separated passion from purpose. On another episode we talked about building work that actually matters, the value, the impact, the intersection of skill, service, and identity. And today, in this episode, we're going to the place where nobody wants to talk about the fear. Because here's what I've noticed in the 4 episodes of going deep on purpose. The moment someone gets close to their real purpose, truly close, not theoretically close, fear shows up every time without exceptions. And most people interpret that fear as a stop sign, as the universe saying, not yet, as their inner wisdom saying, you're not ready. And so they back up, they shrink down, they return to something safer, and they spend months, sometimes years, circling the thing they're meant to do without ever actually stepping into it. Today, I want to completely reframe what that fear means, where it comes from, what it actually is telling you, and why, if you understand it correctly, it becomes one of the most reliable navigational tools you'll have. Let's go. The first fear I want to talk about is the one that usually shows up first, and that one hits the hardest for people who genuinely care. It's the fear of responsibility. When you were doing work that was just about climbing a ladder, about achieving, performing, impressing, the stakes felt personal. If you failed, you looked bad. That was uncomfortable, but it was manageable. It was about you. But when you step into work that's rooted in purpose, work that is genuinely about serving people, about changing something, about showing up for a mission that's bigger than your ego, the stakes change completely. Now, if you don't show up, somebody doesn't get helped. Now, if you pull back, someone who needed what you carry goes without. The failure is no longer just personal, it has weight outside of you. And that is terrifying for people who actually care. Because the more you care, the more real the impact feels, the more it costs to imagine getting it wrong. I felt this when I started taking my coaching work seriously. Not as a side thing, not as a passion project, but as the thing, the primary vehicle for my purpose. The moment I said, this is what I'm here to do, something in me panicked. Because now it was real. Now people were depending on me to actually know what I was doing. Now the conversation I had with the client at 2 o'clock on Tuesday could genuinely affect the direction of their life. That's a lot to hold. And the fear was the appropriate response to how much it matters. Here's the reframe I want you to hold. The fear of responsibility is not telling you that you are not capable of handling. It's telling you that you understand what's at stake, and understanding what is at stake in the beginning of taking it seriously. That seriousness, the weight, is not a bug in the process of living your purpose, it's a feature. People who feel no weight around their purpose either don't fully understand the impact of what they're doing, or they haven't gotten close enough to it yet to feel its full gravity. The fear of responsibility means you're close enough to feel it, and that's exactly where you need to be. The second fear is one I think is deeply underestimated. And for a lot of people, it's the one that actually is running the show even when they think their hesitation is something else. It's the fear of visibility. Living your purpose requires being seen. There's no way around this. Purpose isn't something you do in private, tucked away from the opinions of the world. Purpose, by its nature, involves other people, serving them, leading them, standing for something in front of them. And that means they can see you, which means they can judge you, which means you can be criticized, misunderstood, rejected, or worse, celebrated in a way that requires you to keep showing up at their level. All of that is vulnerable. And for a lot of people, especially people who learned earlier that being visible meant being a target, that vulnerability is genuinely threatening. I want to name something here that doesn't get said enough in the purpose conversations. Visibility fear is not vanity, it is fragility. For many people, it's a deeply rational response to a lifetime of experience that taught them that standing out was dangerous, that being seen meant being judged, that having a public voice meant opening yourself up to attacks you couldn't control. If that's your history, if you grew up being told you were too much or not enough, or that your voice didn't matter, or that standing out would cost you something, your nervous system learned a lesson. Stay small, stay safe, don't be too visible. And now your purpose is asking you to do the exact opposite of what kept you safer for years. Of course that's scary. But here's what I want you to hear. The version of you that learned to stay small was surviving. It was smart. It got you through. But surviving and thriving are not the same strategy. And the survival strategy that protected you then is now the thing capping your expansion. Visibility is not the threat. Invisibility is. Being invisible means that people who need what you carry never find you. It means the impact you're supposed to have never happens. It means your purpose dies quietly, in private, without ever being given a chance. Being seen is the cost of doing the work that matters, and you are capable of paying it. Not all at once, not without discomfort, but step by step, post by post, conversation by conversation. You can build a tolerance for being visible that the old survival weapon of you couldn't imagine. The fear of visibility is real, and you can walk through it anyway. Okay, let's talk about the fear that I think the most quietly devastating of the three. This is probably the one that's the most devastating of the three, because it doesn't just involve strangers on the internet or abstract critics, it involves the people you love. The fear of disappointing people. Here's how this one usually shows up. You have a sense of your purpose. You know the direction you need to move in, but that direction doesn't look like what your family expected. It doesn't look like the path your partner thought you were on. It doesn't look like what your community defines as success. And the thought of their faces, of their confusion, the worry, maybe the disappointment in their eyes, stops you cold. And so you stay. Not because the path is wrong, because the people matter. I want to honor that. Because the people in your life are real, and their feelings are real. And the fact that you care about disappointing them is not a weakness, it is love. The problem is not that you care. The problem is what you're doing with that care. You're letting it make decisions of your life. And here's the thing nobody in your family is ever going to tell you because they don't even know this about themselves. And when someone who loves you tries to pull you back from your purpose, it's almost never actually about you. It's about them. It's about their fear, their uncertainty, their unlived lives, their worry that if you change the version of you that you've built, their understanding around you will disappear. They're not wrong to feel that, but they are asking you to say the same to manage their discomfort. And that is not love, even when it feels like it. That is control dressed in concern. The most loving thing you can do for the people who love you is not to shrink yourself to fit their comfort level. It's to become fully who you are and show them through your life that expansion is possible, that purpose is survivable, that the person on the other side of their fear is still someone they recognize and still someone who loves them back. You will disappoint some people by living your purpose. That is true. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Some relationships will require renegotiation. Some people need time to adjust. A small number may not come with you at all. And you will also inspire people, sometimes the same people, eventually, in ways you cannot currently predict. The version of you who lived small to keep everyone comfortable inspires no one. The version of you who did the scary thing, who followed the call, who built the life that they felt like yours, that version you give other people permission to do the same. Your expansion is not a betrayal of the people you love. It's an invitation. So I want to go deeper now. I want to go a level deeper because I think understanding why purpose produces fear requires understanding what purpose actually does to your identity. And when you see it clearly, the fear starts to make a different kind of sense. Your identity, the story you told about who you are, what you're capable of, what you deserve, what it is and isn't possible for someone like you, is not a fixed thing. It's a living structure. It was built over time, shaped by every experience you've had, every message you've received, every version of yourself you've had to become in order to survive and belong. And your identity as a comfort zone, a range of experience, emotion, and possibilities that feels similar or familiar, safe, known, and your nervous system is wired to protect that range. Not because what's outside is bad, because it is known, it is unknown, and that unknown to a nervous system that had been trained to prioritize safety reads as threat. Purpose almost by definition lives outside that range. Because your purpose is calling you toward the version of yourself you haven't been yet, the leader you haven't stepped into, the voice you haven't used at full volume, the impact you haven't claimed, the identity that's bigger, more visible, more responsible, more real than the one you've been living in. And your current identity, the comfortable, familiar, known version of you, looks at that and says, that's not me. I don't know how to be that. What if I can't sustain it? What if I get there and I'm not still enough? What if becoming that means losing this? That is the fear of identity expansion, and it is completely normal. It does not mean you are not meant for the purpose. It means your identity hasn't caught up to where your soul is already pointing. Here's the thing about identity, though. It expands through action, not through certainty. You do not wait until you feel like the person your purpose requires you to be and then act. You act imperfectly, uncomfortable, with the fear still in your chest. And through the acting, you become. The identity forms around the action, not before it. Every time you step forward your purpose despite the fear, every time you make that call, write that thing, show up for the session, post the video, say the true thing out loud, your identity expands. The range of what feels like you gets a little wider. The edge of your comfort zone moves. And over time, not overnight, but over time, the version of you that your purpose requires becomes the version of you that is simply is. The scary thing becomes a familiar thing. The expansion becomes a new floor. That's what purpose does. It doesn't just change what you do. It changes who you are. And the fear you feel right now is the friction of that change beginning. All right. I want to bring everything together into something practical because I don't want this just to be a beautiful episode that you feel good about and then walk away from unchanged. I want to teach you how to use fear as navigation. Here's the first distinction you need to make. There are two kinds of fear, and they feel similar in the body, but they are pointing in completely different directions. The first kind is protective fear. This is the fear that shows up when something is actually dangerous, when a situation is genuinely threatening your safety, your integrity, your well-being, and the well-being of people you're responsible for. Protective fear is a friend. It keeps you from making decisions that are genuinely harmful. When it shows up, you should listen. The second kind is expansion fear. This is the fear that shows up not because something is dangerous, but because something is new, because it requires a version of you that hasn't fully arrived yet, because the stakes are real and the visibility is real, and the responsibility is real. And your nervous system is screaming that this is too big, too much, too far outside the known. Expansion fear is not a friend in the traditional sense, but it is a signal. And when you learn to read it correctly, it becomes one of the most reliable compasses you have. Here's how you tell the difference. Ask yourself, is this fear pointing at an actual harm, a real risk to something that matters, or is it pointing at discomfort, at the unknown, at something that would require me to become more than I currently believe I am? If it's the first, respect it. Slow down. Think carefully. If it's the second, lean in. That fear is the arrow. It's pointing directly at the thing you're supposed to do next. I have a rule in my own life that I shared with coaching clients more times than I can count. The things that scare me the most within the territory of my purpose is usually the thing I need to do, not eventually, next. The email I've been avoiding to send, the offer I haven't put out yet because what if nobody buys it? The conversation I kept almost having and then backing away from, the piece of content I know is true but feels too vulnerable to post. Those things scare me because they matter. And the things that matter are exactly the things I'm here for. So I've stopped asking myself, how do I get rid of the fear? I've started asking, what is the fear pointing at? And then I go do that thing. Not without fear, through it, with it. Fear in the passenger seat, purpose at the wheel. I want to tell you a story. Not a polished one, a real one. There was a moment not long ago, actually, where I was standing in the edge of something. I had been talking about my coaching work, building toward it, creating content, developing programs, and I knew in the way you know things that are true even when you don't want them to be, that it was time to fully step into it, to stop treating it as a thing I was building toward and start treating it as the thing I was living. And I was scared. All three kinds of scared we talked about today. Scared of the responsibility. What if I can't actually deliver what people need? Scared of the visibility. What if I put myself fully out there and people see me and decide I'm not what they are looking for? And scared of disappointing people. The people in my life who had a picture of what my path was supposed to look like. This wasn't quite it. I remember sitting with all of that. Not dramatically, just sitting with it. And I remember thinking, I have two choices. I can wait until the fear is gone, or I can accept that fear is not going anywhere and step anyway. And I thought about it for waiting had already costed me the time I'd spent in preparation mode instead of creation mode, the clients I hadn't served yet because I hadn't fully shown up, the version of myself that was already there, already capable, already ready, just waiting for me to stop requiring certainty before I moved. So I stepped. Not perfectly, not without shaking. I stepped while shaking. I put the offer out while scared. I showed up for the sessions while uncertain. I posted the content while worried about what people would think. And here's what happened. Not immediately, but over time, the fear didn't disappear. It got smaller relative to who I was becoming because every step expanded me. Every act of showing up, despite the fear, made the territory of what felt like me a little wider. And after a while, the thing that had felt impossible, the terrifying, started to feel like home. That's what's waiting for you on the other side of fear, friend. Not the absence of fear, a bigger you. A you who has proven to yourself through action that the purpose is real and you are equal to it. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be faithful. Faithful to the thing that's calling you, even when the calling is frightening. Here's what I want you to take with you. The fear you feel around your purpose is not a sign that you have the wrong purpose. It is a sign that you have found the real one, because real things have weight. Real things ask something of you. Real things require a version of you that doesn't fully exist yet. The gap between who you are and who that version is, that gap is where fear lives. And that gap is also where you grow. All right, so your activation for this week is simple. I want you to identify the one thing, just one, that you have been avoiding in the direction of your purpose. Not the 10 things, the one thing. The email, the conversation, the offer, the post, the decision, the application, the commitment, the one thing you know you need to do, and keep not doing it because the fear is loud. Write it down and then ask yourself this. Is this fear telling me something is actually harmful, or is it telling me this matters? If it matters, do it this week. Not someday, this week. With the fear present, through it, not after it. And if you want to tell me what that thing is, if you want to say it out loud to someone who will actually hold you to it, send me a direct message. I mean that. That's not a throwaway call to action. That's me genuinely wanting to know what you're stepping toward. Because your purpose is not waiting for your fear to disappear. It's waiting for you to decide what is calling you toward matters more than what fear is warning you away from. Make that decision today, not tomorrow. Make sure you're following the podcast. Make sure you share out this episode to someone who needs to hear it, because you never know what they're going through, and this episode could change their life or support them in any way. Also, make sure you leave a rating and leave some feedback. Leave a comment. Share with us what this podcast Onto Purpose Over a Paycheck has been doing for you. I mean, we've got a lot of episodes out there, right? We've got plenty out there. All right, friends. I'm Coach Troy. This is Onto Purpose Over a Paycheck. We wrapped up this episode, and guess what? You know what that time is? It's time that I'll see you on the next one.